Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air. The deadly scene at a street festival, a vehicle plowing into a crowd in Canada. More than 50 million Americans on alert for severe weather. And the new ABC News Ipsos poll, where voters stand on President Trump as he approaches 100 days in office. First, the horrifying images from Vancouver. More than 10 people killed when a vehicle plowed through a festival. At least 20 others hurt. Victims, including children, tossed around the street. The driver arrested after being captured by a crowd. What we're learning about the suspect, who is apparently known to authorities, and why they're not calling it terrorism. Matt Gutman on the scene in Canada. The severe weather alert this week impacting more than 50 million Americans, stretching from Texas to the Great Lakes. Tornadoes already causing significant damage, and flash floods turning deadly in Oklahoma. Our weather team tracking it all. President Trump's approval rating sinking to historic lows. Our new poll has him with the lowest 100-day approval rating of any president in 80 years. The vast majority of Americans worry that his economic policies will cause a recession, and what many say about his efforts to expand presidential powers. Also tonight, new Russian missile strikes in Ukraine, just hours after that surprise meeting between President Trump and Ukraine's President Zelenskyy. New reporting on who asked for the meeting and what it means for U.S. peace efforts. More than 100 people taken into custody as agents swarm an underground nightclub in Colorado. The agents targeting alleged gang members, but active duty U.S. military personnel were also detained, according to authorities. Tragic details just coming in from Kansas City. A paramedic is stabbed to death, allegedly by a patient he was transporting to a hospital. The NFL investigating a prank call, someone posing as a team general manager, telling prospect Shedeur Sanders he'd been drafted when he hadn't. Late details just coming in. Shocking images, a speedboat flipping and going airborne. What happened to the two people on board? And one day after his funeral, thousands visit the final resting place of Pope Francis as young Catholics look ahead to the future of the church.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday. I'm Whit Johnson. We begin tonight with a deadly scene during a street festival in Vancouver, Canada. A vehicle plowing into a crowd gathering for a celebration of Filipino culture. The horrific images coming in, first responders racing to the victims. At least 11 people killed and 20 were hurt. Many can be seen lying on the ground. Other people in the crowd offering aid. Officials say a man who is known to authorities is solely responsible and is under arrest. They do not believe this was an act of terrorism. And a warning tonight, some of these images are disturbing. ABC's chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, leads us off from Vancouver.
Tonight, Canada reeling after a vehicle plowed through a Vancouver festival, leaving at least 11 dead and 20 others injured.
I and all Canadians were shocked, devastated, and heartbroken.
Authorities say shortly after 8 p.m., a man drove into a crowd of people attending the Lapu-Lapu Day festival, which honors Filipino heritage.
There's a car that went just through the whole street and just hitting everyone. And everyone is panicking. Everyone is screaming.
Disturbing video showing victims strewn on the ground. Dozens of injured lining the block.
So it was really sad. They were all twisted bodies, some with head injuries, two kids that I saw, a baby, and then also probably an 11-year-old child.
Some of the victims carried away for treatment by first responders.
We saw people crawling out, crying, and holding each other.
People were unconscious on the floor, and the people were, the police officers were trying their hardest to revive them. It was really hard to see.
The suspect reportedly fleeing this badly damaged black SUV, but was wrangled by the crowd at the scene. Police say he is a 30-year-old man they say was known to them.
The crowd immediately called police. We then took custody of the subject.
Authorities say they do not believe this was an act of terrorism.
The person we have in custody does have a significant history of interactions with police and healthcare professionals related to mental health.
That incident occurring minutes after Apple to App wrapped his set at the street festival, the founding member of the Black Eyed Peas singing their hit song, I Got a Feeling. Vancouver City Councillor Pete Fry sharing this photo earlier in the day, shaken by the incident.
I'm pretty choked up. I don't even know what to say. This was a great day. Wonderful event. Huge community event.
The festival taking place just days before Canada's federal election. Hours before the tragedy, the leader of the New Democratic Party, Jagmeet Singh, addressing the crowd. Later tweeting, "Our thoughts are with the victims and their families," canceling all campaign events today. On the eve of what could be the most consequential elections in Canada in generations, Canada's Prime Minister saying that this is every family's nightmare. Now, authorities are saying that there are critically wounded among the victims and that the death toll could rise. At this point, they still believe that that suspect acted alone. They're not releasing his identity until he's charged.
Just an awful scene there in Vancouver. Matt Gutman, thank you. Now to the new round of severe weather. More than 50 million Americans on alert. Several reported tornadoes ripping through parts of Texas this weekend. A twister in Canyon, Texas, sending a camper into the air, eventually landing between two homes, and deadly flash flooding in Oklahoma, with more on the way. Here's ABC's Morgan Norwood.
Tonight, millions of Americans in the heartland bracing for a significant tornado threat. Multiple twisters from a separate system striking the Texas Panhandle Friday. South of Amarillo, Texas, an EF1 twister with winds up to 110 miles per hour, damaging more than a dozen homes. Nat High racing to protect his wife.
Immediately, I pushed my wife off of the bed. I landed on top of her right then and there, millisecond. Our bedroom window burst, exploded.
Parts of Oklahoma inundated with more than 5 inches of rain Saturday. Flash flooding claiming the life of one person in Lawton, Oklahoma, after police say a vehicle drove into standing water. The upper Midwest now on alert for a major severe weather outbreak tomorrow.
Again, can't emphasize enough to be sure to pay attention to watches and warnings issued tomorrow afternoon.
While in the east, firefighters battling strong winds and dry conditions in southern New Jersey. The Jones Road wildfire scorching more than 23 square miles. Authorities believe it was intentionally started by a teenager.
And with parts of southern New Jersey are facing elevated fire danger, with authorities warning that these winds are causing already burned trees to fall, and that's creating serious hazards.
Morgan Norwood, thanks so much. Let's get right to meteorologist Danny Beckstrom from our New York station WABC. And Danny, this is a serious threat for the nation's heartland.
Yeah, tomorrow's shaping up to be a dangerous day for so many in the upper Midwest. Take a look at the map. Strong storms expected from Texas up through the Great Lakes, with a severe outbreak possible from Kansas City to Duluth. Our greatest concern is the area highlighted in red, which includes Minneapolis, where strong tornadoes and very large hail are possible tomorrow. Timing it out, storms begin firing up tonight in the plains, bringing damaging wind and hail. By sunrise Monday, a line of heavy rain across Minnesota. But that's just the first of several rounds that we're watching. The most intense storms are forecast tomorrow evening into Monday night, so it's important to stay weather aware even after sunset. The threat for severe weather continues into Tuesday as the storm shifts east.
Danny Beckstrom, thank you. To politics now, as President Trump approaches his 100th day in office, his approval ratings are sinking even on the issues he ran on, like the economy. Our new poll finds a majority of Americans think the economy is now worse than it was when he took office, and what many say about the likelihood of a recession. ABC News senior White House correspondent Selina Wang in Washington tonight.
Tonight, Americans expressing broad dissatisfaction with the beginning of President Trump's second term in office. Trump's 100-day approval rating plummeting to the lowest of any president in the past 80 years as he seeks to reshape the United States economy, government, and role in the world. 55% of respondents in this ABC News Washington Post Ipsos poll say they disapprove of how Trump is handling his job so far. Trump's promises to boost the economy and lower prices were key to his election victory.
I will instruct my cabinet that I expect results within the first 100 days or much sooner than that.
But 72% now say they think it's very or somewhat likely that Trump's economic policies will cause a recession. 73% say the economy is in bad shape, and more than half say it's gotten worse since Trump took office. The International Monetary Fund warning Trump's tariffs on foreign imports and the resulting global trade war will drive up prices and slow down economic growth around the world. The administration now insisting short-term pain will be worth the ultimate goal, bringing manufacturing back to America.
We're in this for the long term, and the important thing is that we are setting the fundamentals for a strong dollar, a strong economy, strong stock market.
But Americans are also voicing concern beyond the economy. 64% say he's going too far in trying to expand presidential powers, and 62% say they don't think his administration respects the rule of law. This as Trump tests the limits of presidential powers, challenging court orders, and attacking judges who have tried to check his authority on immigration policy.
I don't see how judges can take that authority away from a president.
And Whit, President Trump is holding a rally in Michigan on Tuesday to mark the first 100 days of his second term. But the president is urging Republican members of Congress to stay here in Washington, calling it a crucial week to advance his agenda around immigration and tax cuts. Meanwhile, tonight, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is vowing that Democrats will resist the president's latest legislative push. Whit.
Selina Wang, thank you. And tune into ABC News on Tuesday when President Trump sits down for an exclusive interview with ABC News senior national correspondent Terry Moran to mark his first 100 days back in the White House. It all begins at 8 Eastern here on ABC. Next tonight, a day after Pope Francis was laid to rest, tens of thousands lining up to pay their respects at his tomb in Rome's Mary Major Basilica. Many waiting hours to get a glimpse of the simple white marker that bears his name in Latin. ABC's Maggie Rulli joins us from Rome as the focus begins to shift to the future of the Catholic Church. Maggie.
Hey, Whit. Yeah, today, tens of thousands of mourners waited in line to see the tomb of Pope Francis, a simple tomb inscribed with just one word, Franciscus. Now, among them, there were more than 100 cardinals who will now be turning their attention to the conclave. That's that highly orchestrated, secretive process to elect the next pope. Now, the earliest the conclave could start isn't until next Monday, May 5th. So with that means this next week, most of the world's cardinals are going to be right here in Vatican City. They'll be getting to know one another and preparing to elect the next pope. Now, this past weekend, it was incredible to witness just the outpouring of gratitude for Pope Francis. St. Peter's Square and the area around it was filled with nearly 250,000 people, according to the Vatican. Another 150,000 people lining the streets. I was just outside the square, and you could feel the weight, the significance of the moment we were witnessing. The whole crowd was silent, just breaking into applause during the homily when they mentioned Pope Francis's love for peace.
An emotional weekend indeed. Maggie, really, thank you. Staying overseas now, Russia launching a series of strikes across Ukraine just hours after the surprise meeting between President Trump and President Zelenskyy at the Pope's funeral. ABC News has learned President Trump requested that meeting as the White House continues to press all sides for a peace deal. ABC's Marcus Moore reports.
Tonight, we are learning more about that one-on-one surprise meeting between President Trump and Ukraine's President Zelenskyy that took place at the Vatican minutes before funeral services for Pope Francis. Zelenskyy responding to questions about how it went during a meeting with the UK's Prime Minister.
Mr. President, how did the meeting with Trump go?
Really, we had a productive meeting.
That 15-minute meeting, a far cry from their last face-to-face exchange in the Oval Office in February.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
I'm not
cards.
playing cards.
But right now, you don't.
Yeah,
you're playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of
war.
millions of people. You're
You
gambling with World War III.
President Trump also saying Saturday's meeting went well, and ABC News has learned that he requested it. The president now hitting out at Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying there is, quote, no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities, and towns. But continuing to pressure Ukraine to accept a peace deal that forces them to give up land that Russia has seized since its invasion, as well as Crimea that it annexed in 2014.
With President Trump promised on the campaign trail to end the war in Ukraine on day one of his presidency, but as he approaches his 100th day in the White House, peace remains elusive.
Marcus Moore for us. Thank you. Back here in the U.S., more than 100 people were taken into custody overnight in a raid on an underground nightclub in Colorado. Active duty U.S. military personnel were also there, according to authorities, who say they were either working security or were there as patrons. And tonight, what officials say they found inside. Here's ABC's Alex Brachet.
Overnight, a massive raid in Colorado Springs. More than 300 federal agents breaching what authorities say was an underground illegal nightclub as part of a drug investigation. These images, posted by the DEA's Rocky Mountain Division, show stools toppled over, a Mexican passport, and pills. even car keys left in the chaos.
What was happening inside was significant drug trafficking, prostitution, crimes of violence.
All of this the results of a months-long investigation. The DEA says ICE took more than 100 people who they say were here illegally into custody, and that members of the military were there as well.
We had over a dozen active duty service members in the club tonight, either as patrons or working as armed security.
Agents tell us a raid of this scale in that region is unprecedented. And as for those service members allegedly involved, the Army says that its Criminal Investigations Division is now conducting a joint investigation with the DEA.
Alex Brachet, thank you. Turning now to the investigation following the NFL draft. Top prospect Shedeur Sanders and son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, the target of a prank call as he dropped to the 5th round. And what we've just learned about who is allegedly behind that call. Here's ABC's Ike Ejiochi.
Tonight, the NFL says they're investigating how a private number for standout prospect Shedeur Sanders, only available to NFL teams, got in the hands of 2 prank callers. Clips posted online show young men, one wearing an Ole Miss sweatshirt inside what appears to be a dorm room, impersonating New Orleans Saints general manager Mickey Loomis. The Atlanta Falcons releasing a statement saying the 21-year-old son of their defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich was responsible for the call. The incident captured on Sanders' Twitch live stream as he gathered with his family, hoping to hear his name called in this year's NFL draft.
But nobody got this number, though.
The star quarterback from Colorado thinking his dreams of becoming a pro were coming true until the men abruptly hung up.
The Cleveland Browns select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado.
He was supposed to be one of the first names called in this year's NFL draft. Shedeur Sanders, son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, sliding all the way to the 5th round. Jack Ulbrich apologizing to Sanders, saying, "I took away from your moment. It was selfish and childish."
All right, Ike Ejiochi for us, thank you. There's still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Sunday. Late details from Kansas City where a paramedic was stabbed to death, allegedly by a patient. And the moment a speedboat went airborne. What happened to the people on board? Next tonight, details just coming in on a disturbing attack in Kansas City overnight. Police say a firefighter paramedic was stabbed to death, allegedly by a patient he was transporting to a hospital. Paramedic Graham Hoffman was 29 years old. The patient is now in police custody. Up next here, that dramatic video of a speedboat going out of control. To the index now in a dramatic crash. A speedboat you see there flipping and then goes airborne for several seconds during a competition Saturday in Lake Havasu in Arizona. The boat, reportedly with 10,000 horsepower, was aiming for a record when it flipped. The 2 racers on board were said to be a little banged up, but otherwise okay. Still ahead, young Catholics honor Pope Francis and tell us about their hope for the future. Finally tonight, young Catholics honoring Pope Francis and looking to the future. Here again is Maggie Rowley.
Today, a celebration in St. Peter's Square. I want to show you this incredible scene right now. Nearly 200,000 young people here for the Jubilee of Teenagers Mass. Just 24 hours ago, this square was filled with mourners for the funeral of Pope Francis. Right now, it is filled with hope. It's the first ever Jubilee of Teenagers. It's part of the larger Jubilee Year of Hope, celebrated by Catholics worldwide, offering a time of spiritual renewal and pilgrimage. These young pilgrims now also witnessing history, the funeral of Pope Francis.
#we were here.
Mary Legary from Maryland calls Pope Francis a beautiful man.
I thought it was just really amazing that we were able to be part of that.
What do you want to see for the future of the Catholic Church?
Oh gosh, just more people. I just want to see more people come to the church.
And tells me today's Jubilee isn't about the future, it's the now.
It's not we're the next generation, we are the new generation of the church. So it's really beautiful to see everybody together.
And our thanks to Maggie Rowley. Thank you so much for watching tonight. I'm Whit Johnson in New York. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.